of professional practice.
He's a professor of modern languages at Florida International University. Highly unusual for an interpreter, for a court translator to speak out as he has. But he decided to do this, Monica Ramirez, based on what each of the people were going through that was being brought through the court system. Your response?
My response to his comments?
Yes, and the fact that he spoke out, saying this was highly unorthodox, what was taking place.
It's incredibly important that he spoke out. I think without his essay, there would be a lot that we would still not know about how these prosecutions were conducted. I think one critical element that he highlighted, and in his essay, I'm not sure if he described it in the clip that you just played, but one critical element of the criminal prosecutions here was the predetermined decision to appoint a single criminal defense lawyer to represent large numbers of defendants. Only 18, I believe, criminal defense attorneys were appointed by the federal court to represent the more than 300 workers, and every attorney represented 17 defendants on average. Now, it's unclear how the court decided to appoint that number, how the defense lawyers were selected or identified for appointment. No explanation has been offered as to why an insufficient number of defense attorneys were appointed to provide individualized representation. And individualized representation was especially critical here, given that the anticipated proceedings would involve complex questions of immigration law, and where language, cultural, and other barriers would likely impede communication between the client and counsel. Now, the appointment of 26 Spanish language interpreters to work with defense attorneys did not obviate the need for more defense attorneys. Because most of the defendants were Guatemalan of Mayan descent, for whom Spanish was a second language, Spanish language interpretation of legal concepts and other matters related to the defendant's prosecutions was likely inadequate. And so the need for more attorneys and more interpreters cannot be overstated and should be further investigated, particularly in light of the pre-planned exploding plea offers and expedited proceedings more generally.
Father Paul Ouderkirk, I wanted to go back to Postville for a description for people who wouldn't be familiar with this town, which isn't unusual, a place first settled by German and Norwegian Lutherans and Irish Catholics more than 150 years ago, Hispanic immigrants raising children, buying houses, businesses. AP had an interesting report by Monica Rohr that described the different cultures living next door to each other and what has happened since, and the bringing in of new immigrants to work, like Somalis.
Well, when I was pastor here for 4 years, we had a very active diversity council, and it was commonly held that there were 27 different cultures living and working here. And the diversity council became very active, and we did a lot of creative things. Well, you can well imagine that the raid wiped out all those years, about 10 years of good hard work and mutual understanding overnight. And right now, the population of Postville before the raid was 2,400. After the raid, it was less than 2,000. And only recently, when they're bringing in they brought in the Somalis, but this is not a permanent solution to the lack of workers in the plant. The Somalis that were brought in, about 3 weeks ago, two-thirds of them have been fired. It was discovered that they're Muslim and they pray 5 times a day, and the plant did not want to allow them to have that time. So
this is an interesting contrast. You have the Muslim workers, and it's a large, the largest kosher agri-processor in the world. Is that right?
That's correct. I toured it. I'm the only one of our staff that ever toured it, and I toured the plant twice. And the second time, they told me their goal was to become the largest kosher plant so they could control all the kosher meat going into Israel. And I don't think they had quite gotten there yet, but they were employing over 900 workers. The raid, while it took only 390 or 400, by the way, not all of the people that they took did they take correctly. We know of an instance of a mother that was taken, and she was kept in prison for 3 days, protesting that she had 2 children at home she needed to take care of, and they didn't pay any attention to her. And when they let her out, normally they would have put a leg bracelet on a mother like that. On her, they didn't, because they could see she was so emotionally wrought that they just said, go back to Postville and take care of your children, and don't leave. Well, she came into our office, and she was, I've never seen anybody so terribly emotionally distressed. Her husband being arrested 3 days away from her children and in prison with mostly men, and she said to us, they are never going to do that to me again. She was terrified. And so suddenly she's gone. We don't know where she went.
I'm looking at this AP piece that goes on to say now about 20 to 25 women remain tethered to the bracelets, black electronic monitoring devices that dig into the skin of their right ankles, leaving dark bruises and painful cuts. Some women try without success to protect their flesh with makeshift bandages fashioned from bandanas and shorn socks. And the women who happily embraced hard work are forced to subsist on donations from St. Bridget's and the local food pantry while they await court dates. While they wait, they worry. And it goes on to say that last week, the Iowa Labor Commissioner's Office said an investigation had uncovered 57 cases of child labor law violations at the facility, at agri-processors, which has also been cited for numerous safety and health violations. The claims have prompted debates among rabbis about kosher laws, protections for food workers, and how Orthodox oversight officials should involve themselves.
Well, you mentioned one thing that we have seen a lot firsthand, and that is the protection of the workers. We know that they were mistreated. A couple were beaten. They were asked to work faster when the line was going already so fast they could barely keep up to it. When I was pastor here, I saw many cases of carpal tunnel because they had heavy electronic knives that they had to swing over their heads to cut the legs of chickens and turkeys day after day. We had the case of a young man he was working on a machine. It got blocked. They shut it down. He reached in to unblock it, and his own foreman turned it on, and he lost a hand. And to this date, he doesn't receive very much compensation from the plant. He's seeking to get his just dues there. But we saw people that were cut, and others who were illegally charged for buying their own safety work clothes when the plant should provide that. They were charged for washing. Different deductions were taken out of their checks that were never explained to them. And now when the women come to us, yesterday was our day to help them with rents, utilities, special needs. We do that twice a week. And since our goal is to assist those directly impacted by the raid, we always take those people first, because the other thing that's happened is that the plant, after firing some of these workers, the workers end up down here looking for assistance because they have nothing.
On that note, we have to leave it there, but we will continue to follow the story of Postville, Iowa, where the largest immigration raid in U.S. history took place this past May. I want to thank you, Father Paul Ouderkirk, for joining us, and Monica Ramirez, staff attorney with the American Civil Liberties Union's Immigrants' Rights Project. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. We'll be back in a minute.